Hi, this is Shantae. I'm here with my political analysis today on Tuesday, June 30th, 2020, which is the end of the fiscal year, the government fiscal year, enter into a new financial year for those who are into finance or those who work for nonprofit or government agencies. That's where we are. But I'm going to bring you some stuff. It was an unpacked jam. Well, it was a loaded day. So I'm going to unpack this, excuse me. So I have stuff here today. So we know we have the coronavirus, so I'll just read the stats to you. We are at 10,434,835 cases of COVID-19 globally. In the United States, which we're like still a third of the cases, we are at 2,629,372 cases of COVID. The number of fatalities, we are at 127,322. So let me repeat those numbers again. The U.S. COVID cases, the number of cases is 2,629,372 cases of COVID. The number of fatalities, we are at 127,322 cases. Numbers. So we have the highest death rates and the highest number of cases of COVID. And our country's only, 325 million people, about, roughly? So that's where we are. In terms of the other countries, next in line of us is Brazil, which is a country mostly people of color. They're at 1,402,041 cases of COVID-19. Russia, following along with that, is 646,929. Next in line is India, which is another brown country, at 566,840. And the UK is at 314,160. In terms of other countries with lower cases, but their cases are rising, Panama is at 32,785. Dominican Republic is at 32,568. Nigeria is at 25,694. Honduras is at 18,818. Senegal is at 6,793. Kenya is at 6,366. Now this is all according to the Johns Hopkins website. So you could go on the Johns Hopkins website, or you can Google it and Google Johns Hopkins COVID map, and that's what you will come up with. Haiti is at 5,933. Cuba is at 361. Cabo Verde, which is Cape Verdeans, they live there. They are the Black Portuguese people, is another country of color, is at 1,227. The Diamond Princess, which are on the Caribbean islands, is at 712. Guyana is at 245 cases. Trinidad and Tobago is at 130. They moved up 4 cases from yesterday. What remaining the same is Antigua at 69. St. Vincent also remained the same at 29. Belize is at 24, remained 24 yesterday. It went uptick, I think, since Monday. Grenada is still the same at 23 cases. St. Lucia is still the same at 19. And Dominica is still the same at 18. I picked certain countries because I make my point that most countries of color, most of them, not all, but most, but I can say like a good 85% are containing their coronavirus cases, even though you see some upticks. But some of it is due to tourists visiting the country from Europe, more than likely, or even probably Australia maybe, who had COVID and did not know. So that's where the COVID cases are. Of course, here in the United States, our cases is high due to the lack of leadership. Yes, there was travel from China on the other side of the country, but also there was Europeans who also had COVID cases, especially came to the East Coast, such as New York and New Jersey, because New York is the first travel hub as a U.S. Major city when you fly overseas across the Atlantic. So that's more than likely. And I knew that before even the news confirmed it. Because I was like, it's a long way for a virus to come from China all the way to New York. I mean, that's kind of weird. So, and it's a tiring travel. So I know it was Europeans. especially from like people like where France, Spain, Italy, who had soaring cases of COVID-19, and we surpassed them like in a matter of weeks and maybe a month, because they're still in the 200s while we're still at almost 3 million cases of COVID, and that's because we not do a national lockdown. These other countries did a national lockdown. We didn't. Now, in terms of in the states, we have, of course, New York went up about 1,000 cases. No, less than 1,000 cases at 398,142, and that's due to the cluster upstate mostly. There was a guy who came from Miami who went to a graduation and affected 13 other people in Westchester, and then there's some in factories on the western part of the state, so that's where you can see the cluster of those cases. I see some people, according to my pictures, in different areas of my borough in Manhattan, and even some areas in Brooklyn that's still not practicing social distancing. So I'm not surprised if the city goes into phase 3. My opinion, I don't think they should go into phase 3 because of people not listening, and of course things are not being enforced. So nah. No. Nope. Also, California is next in line of New York. They jump way ahead of New Jersey. They're at 231,842 cases. Texas is at 165 cases. Yesterday, I believe they were at 158,000. So they moved up about like 7,000 cases. Florida is at 152. 426,000 cases of COVID. Arizona is at 79,399, and Georgia is at 77,280. So those states are seeing high number cases of COVID-19. So yes, New York still has the highest cases, but however, our cases is not climbing as high as these following 5 states and other states as well. And states like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut are following by the metrics of the data. We are opening in phases and not at above a 50% capacity. Some are opening at most is 25 to 33% occupancy. We have outside dining, but in New York City in particular, we are still at phase 2, and I don't believe that we're going to be in phase 3 no time soon. Maybe in the middle of July, when you see people actually complying to the social distancing guidelines issued by the state. And also there are also New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut want travelers of 16 states to self-quarantine, and it's voluntarily. And those states are California, Georgia, Iowa, Idaho, Louisiana, Missouri, Nevada, Tennessee, along with Alaska, along with Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. So pretty much, yeah. This is where we are in COVID. It's not going away. It's just not. No time soon. No time. Right? No time soon. So that's where we are. And Dr. Anthony Fauci, excuse me, from not saying Dr. Fauci, testified on Capitol Hill today to the Senate, I think, Health and Education Committee. And Rand Paul's, I didn't watch the whole thing, but Rand Paul's question kind of stuck out to me. The fact that he's a medical doctor and he's just that incoherent to coronavirus affecting children. So he basically said, every day the things we cannot do, but when you're asked, can we go back to school, I don't hear much certitude at all. I hear maybe it depends on all this body of evidence about schools around the world, and it shows it's quote unquote no surge. all the evidence show it's rare. That's what he said, according to the World Health Organization. We all know that's crazy. We politicize this, so politically correct. And so he asked Fauci, can you give us a little bit more on schools, and so we can get back to schools and let's see a great deal of evidence. So Dr. Fauci said, I agree with a lot of what you say, saying in terms of people putting their opinions out. But if you're listening to my opening statement, I'm pretty sure that you were. That's what he said. I'm pretty sure you were. I feel strong that we have to do whatever that we can to get the children back to school, aka come up with a vaccine. When things get in the press of what I've said, I never said that we can't play a sport. People in the sports industry, whether they can be either from the player association, whether people involved with the health of the players, they ask me opinions regarding certain facts about the spread of the virus, and I give it and it's interpreted as, you can play the sport. I completely unqualified to tell you whether you can play a sport or not. The only thing I can do is to give you my best. The only thing I can do is to the best of my ability, is to give you the facts and the evidence associated with what I can do about this outbreak. And he has been giving us the best analysis. He basically warned us of a second wave coming, because it is coming, and it's going to be coming during cold and flu season. And I'm assuming that's like in mid-September, or probably like around early October, where people get their flu shots. Excuse me. So more than likely, that's going to happen. So kids going back to school, in my opinion, and I don't have kids, it's a little risky. Kids are the ones who spread most germs, in my book. Every time when kids have a cold, they give it to another kid, and that kid goes home and give it to their siblings or to their parents, and the whole house is sick with a cold. So that's an example of why I think, in my opinion, that kids should continue distance learning until there's a vaccine, and kids should be required to get a vaccine. Of course, you're going to have some kids who don't believe in vaccination because of their religious background, which I completely understand. But overall, I think there needs to be a vaccine. I think it needs to be some type of cure, so this way kids don't affect other kids or get Wasaki virus and they end up dying. Because there's kids today that are immunocompromised. There's kids that have asthma. There's kids that have heart failure. There's kids that have diabetes. There's kids that have anemia. So we have to be mindful and conscientious, about these kind of things. So Rand Paul asking that kind of question, and then he's a medical doctor. He's an ophthalmologist, but he's still a doctor, and I'm pretty sure he learned about kids affecting other kids. It's the stupidest thing and incoherent and ignorant thing I ever heard. So that's just my take on that. But otherwise, this is an impact, and it has an impact, and this public health scare does have an impact on our economy. I think Thursday the jobs report comes back out, and I get to hear about the jobs report, give those numbers to you. And plus, I think there's going to be some figures tomorrow, because today was the end of the fiscal year. So I'm pretty sure maybe numbers will come out tomorrow. Not quite as sure, and if they does, I'll probably give it to you. But more than likely, the jobs report comes out every Thursday. So I'm pretty sure tomorrow some numbers may come up, because tomorrow's the beginning of the new fiscal year for the country, which starts on July 1st. In terms of politics, and get into the politics of things, there was a White House press briefing today. Kayleigh McEnany started off that press briefing kind of like hostile again with her fake dry hello. I can say this in front of the New York Times, in the front page of the New York Times. It's not the venue to discussing classified information. The White House podium is not the venue of discussing classified information. We are here to having the discussion because of an irresponsible anonymous leak to the New York Times. There is no good scenario as a result of this New York Times report. Who's gonna want to comprehend with the U.S. intelligence community? Who's gonna want to be a source or asset if they know that their identity will be disclosed? Which allies would want to share information with us if they know some random rogue intelligence officer can go splashing info in a front page major U.S. newspaper? Specifically, there are two bad scenarios that emerge from this report. One, this report makes it more difficult to come to a consensus to verified intelligence. Okay, yeah, whatever. This level of controversy, controversy and this discord to hand directly to Russia, unfortunately serves their interests. Claims Trump receives leaks, and she said it's disrespectful, and she claims that it's irresponsible. And her message to the media was, you may seek to undermine this president, quote unquote, because I quote him as president because I don't consider him as president because he disrespects our normal democratic institutions. You undermine our country's safety and our country's security. So that was her hostile statement to the press about a report, which is true, because Donald Trump was briefed about what went on with the Russian bounty to the Taliban to kill our American soldiers along with our allies, which are the UK soldiers. And the intelligence was shared with the UK people as well, because those are our allies. Their people were killed too. They were among, I think, the 10 soldiers or maybe more soldiers that were killed in 2018. I think 6 last year. I'm not sure it's 2 this year, but that's what happened. So a reporter asks, when did the White House officials learn about this intelligence that Russia bounties existed? McEnany said the president was never briefed on this, and the intelligence has never been verified among the intelligence community. Well, according to CNN, that's a whole entire lie. You can look at the CNN article yourself. And then it was quoted, somebody quoted Joe Biden, I think the same reporter, a dereliction of our duty, which is true, because this is something that the Republicans should be like alarmed about, right? They should be alarmed about our national security, because they quote unquote call themselves globalist, but are they really globalist? Do anybody know? I mean, they're ignoring the whole thing. They were for the Constitution, traditionalists, family rights, pro-life, protecting our security, and they just passed a measure today in the Senate, basically not protecting our elections from Russian interference or any foreign interference today. So that explains to you they're cozying up for this current White House occupant. McEnany repeated the intelligence info has not yet been verified, and she said, and she was asked if this intelligence info happens to be true, will Trump take action? It is true. She shouldn't say if it was true, but whatever. McEnany said, well, this president has always been tough and adulterated action against Russia. We all know that's BS, because he lifted the economic sanctions once President Obama had left office, because President Obama put sanctions on Russia, kicked a lot of Russian workers and agency folks out of our country. They had 72 hours, that's 3 days before he left office, to leave because of the Russian interference in our elections back in 2016. If anything, this administration has cozied up to Russia. A lot of their language is detailed to Russia. The collusion of our elections, which had a lot of Trump's campaign folks arrested and serving time. That's what the whole Mueller investigation was about. And there were a lot of interference because it was true. It was true. And that's that. And now they're saying that they've been tough on Russia. Child, please. And then she just said more random, stupid stuff. And I'm not just going to get into all of it because, honestly, to tell you the truth, it was nothing but lies. They lied about the Steele dossier, saying that DNC funded. We all know it's crap. We all know it's stupid. So, I mean, what can you say about this jacked up administration? This is exactly why I always tell people to vote. He will have reservations about our current presumptive nominee, but our presumptive nominee can actually be a man and right his wrongs versus the guy who have conned businesses after businesses as a New York businessman. And I know this offhand because I actually watched Donald Trump con people as I grew up in the city. The news, he was always in front of the New York Daily News, getting trolled for all his bad, shady business dealings that he had done since the 1970s. I mean, I don't know why people are acting like he's the closest thing to Jesus. Because he's not. And let's just be real. Also, Biden had gave his, I believe, his a little briefing today. I caught it, and he started off by saying, for weeks we have been seeing the warning signs. The numbers don't lie, because that's true. Infection rates are now going up in most states, going up in 32 states. He said we won't be able to solve the economic crisis because we are in a recession until without a rigorous without a rigorous public health approach, which is true, and it requires more testing, requires also contact tracing of those who had COVID-19, and there's a lot of contact tracer jobs that are available. I even applied to some, but I didn't get a call back yet. But if those who are looking for a job, there's contact tracing jobs available. You can just look on the website, and I think you can work remotely from home, I believe. He also said COVID-19 is totally under control. That's what Donald Trump, he quoted Donald Trump and said, in January, he sounded the alarm. And he quoted Donald Trump, saying, COVID-19 is totally under control. Everything will work out well. We're almost in July. We'll be in July tomorrow. As of 12 o'clock tonight. We have almost 3 million cases. I mean, honestly, everything is not under control. This is going to be a long summer. This is going to be a long year. That's why I told people, vote, 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 vote. This is exactly why. So that's the piece. Also, I mentioned about the Republicans basically passing a resolution to basically not protect our elections, which we're not surprised. Also, the Dems also passed a resolution to impeach William Barr, which I don't know if that's going to happen because the Senate has to impeach him, and the Senate is not going to. Like, this Senate already made up their mind, with their majority leader included, made up their mind that they're not going to pass the Justice and Policing Act, that they're not going to make D.C. the 51st state, that they're not going to protect our elections or our voting rights. So this is exactly why elections matter. And it doesn't matter every 4 years. It matters every year. And it starts from our local to our state to our federal and to the presidency. So when you stay home and say this doesn't act for me, then that means that you're not about change. You're not about change at all. You're about basically being complicit to buffoonery. So when you don't vote, you are part of the complicit group of people. With the primary election in Kentucky, the results came. McGrath did win, not by a huge margin over Representative Charles Booker of the Kentucky legislature. And he had 42.6%, almost 43%. To me, I actually like Mr. Booker. He speaks highly well. He has some good points. McGrath is all right, but McGrath has not showed up to the Black Lives Matter protests. She came up with an excuse saying she was with her family and blah, 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 blah. But if you want a majority of votes, if you want to beat Mitch McConnell, because we already know where he is, you have to convince voters in Kentucky, white and black, of why you should be the person to represent their state. You should be that person. You have to have an agenda for black people. We are under not only a pandemic, but civil unrest and racial reckoning in this country. It's no way that you just can give a bullshit excuse of why you wasn't at a protest. You have to give an agenda where you can reach out to black people, black and brown people in this country. Because right now, everybody's trying to cater around Black Lives Matter. Hopefully it permanently lasts forever and ever, right? Will last permanently, basically. Using the word in the wrong sentence. I apologize. It's late at night. So, much said, like, this is where we are in this country. This is where we are. And we have to be vigilant. We have to be informed. We have to stay engaged to what is going on. Even if you take 10 minutes of your day, you probably get a lot of news. You get a lot of news in 10 minutes. You'd be surprised. Just saying. If you don't want to watch major cable news, there's internet news. You can also make sure it's not a conspiracy theory news. You can also read. Reading is good. Reading probably takes you like 5 to 10 minutes. If you're a fast reader, that's great. Me, I'm not too much a fast reader, but I like to break things down. I like to take notes. I take a lot of notes, obviously. I watch a lot of videos, obviously. So I do both and both, and I just don't search on Wikipedia. I search news articles. I search historical websites to get information and to do my back research. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. So that's that. So in terms of Mississippi has signed the actual bill to law that I have said to change the Confederate flag, because they're the last state to have the Confederate emblem, the symbol, on their state flag. And a lot of the people that work for the state that are black said that was great that they removed that because it was offensive, and it is offensive. So when Donald Trump say that, protect our heritage and all of this stuff, it's not heritage. It's not. It's not your heritage. It's basically it's racist. And it's these Confederate heroes, quote unquote heroes, have betrayed our country. So when Donald Trump says that, that's racist. When he said turn down Confederate statues and statues of slave owners, saying it's wrong, it's racist. I think they need to go. We don't need to praise people that mistreated people of color, black people, Hispanic people, and even indigenous people. We can't have that shit in our country. So I'm glad that Mississippi did that. I think that was great. And they got to vote on a new flag, and the Confederate emblem is not up on the ballot. So they have to come up with something new. Plain and simple. But I'm going to end this live tonight, which I always say, and I'm going to keep saying it. Please, please stay informed. Vote. Do what you need to do to stay engaged. Also, if you're going outside, if you're an essential worker, be safe. Wear your gloves, wear your mask, wash your hands. Try to stay socially distanced as possible. If you're living with your family, if you got to go to work, make sure that if the spouse don't have to go to work, you can stay home. If the kids want to get air outside, be careful. Stay socially distant. That's all I can tell you. Just be safe. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night. And thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.